thanks for joining us today. We have Ms. Sadie with us, our Alumni Ambassador, who studied in Berlin. So she's going to tell us about all of her experiences during her semester abroad. Sadie, if you want to tell us who you are, what university you're representing, what class you are in, major, minor, and maybe why you chose Berlin.
Thanks for having me. Like Jackie said, I'm Sadie. I'm a senior at Champlain College, which is in Vermont. My major is international business, and I have a minor in foreign languages, specifically German and Mandarin. So I chose Germany. I was lucky enough to go to Berlin before I studied there, but I wanted to spend more time there. I just found it a really great city, and everything that I'd heard about it beforehand, how there's history everywhere, people are super tolerant. It's just very lovely, and I am very glad I went.
Yeah, absolutely. And you went for a full-term semester, so you went for fall?
Yes, yeah, fall 2019.
Excellent. Oh, so we're going back memory lane, kind of, right? You said Berlin is a super tolerant city, and we did talk about this a little bit with our resident director, 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of Instagram lives ago. Yeah, very accepting with LGBTQ plus community, different races are accepted, what have you. It's all around the board, very, very tolerant. But can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you experienced firsthand in Berlin that kind of gave you this idea?
For sure. Well, first of all, like, no city is perfect, so I want to acknowledge that. But Berlin is fantastic. I mean, you mentioned 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦. She texted me literally yesterday about a new bookshop that opened up that's selling only female authors and authors who identify as queer, just to give them more of a platform, if that gives you any idea of like what the city's like. There's pride every year, and it's just like everyone can be who they want to be. It just felt really accepting. Just went into every type of person on the street.
When you say there was pride, do you mean like, was there particular events like a pride parade, kind of how we have here in the US?
Yeah, it's called like Christopher Street Day over there, but it's in the summer and similar to the pride we have in the US.
So coming home, right, you repatriate, you feel this like void, like you wish you were probably back in Berlin. You probably wish that now. But what are maybe the top 3 things that you miss the most, or you feel the absence of most after you repatriated home?
I definitely felt it when I was living in Vermont, but I miss public transportation everywhere. Mm-hmm. Berlin has such a great network of like buses and streetcars and trains and underground trains and everything, and it's just so much easier to get around. I miss using my German all the time, every day. I miss being in an old city. It's strange to say. I miss that everything is super old, like with new stuff sprinkled in, but it's not every day that you get to see a 1,000-year-old building walking around Boston, you know.
Excellent. And would you say that your experiences with the history of Berlin, is that just like a personal interest of your own, where you kind of explored those historical landmarks and places within the city on your own accord, or were there classes that you had that were, you know, pertinent to the history of Berlin and you being kind of participatory to those, you know, inner city tours?
I mean, history is something I've always been interested in, but I got really into Berlin's history because of the classes that I was taking. To fulfill some core credits, I made sure to like arrange my schedule so I could take these classes. I took architecture of Berlin, and I took classical music history from the Baroque period till like the 50s or 60s. So those 2 classes were just all aspects of history coming at me from all sides. Architecture one, we got to go out into the city nearly every week and see something new.
One of the things about study abroad that, like, you know, you, no matter what student you're talking to, alumni ambassador, what have you, or even resident director, like no matter what the location is, you guys always have opportunity to kind of have that experiential learning where you're not constantly in the classroom. It's not all textbook. You do kind of like get to walk through the stories. That's probably the best part about study abroad, and reflecting on my own experience. You learn outside of the books. It's more of that. You can physically go to point A, point B, point C with your faculty, with your staff, and get to learn about things firsthand in person, which is really, really cool. Did you have a favorite class, or a class that was maybe most challenging for you?
It's hard to say. I mean, I love German, so that's probably automatically a favorite. But I was really challenged by the classical music one. I've taken cello for a number of years, and my friend's mom is a music history teacher, but I haven't been exposed like too much to it. And it was all kind of new. I've never studied music before, and that was really interesting.
Is there an assignment with that classical music class, like one that like stays with you and like you'll never forget it, you know, as long as you live, just because it was that kind of a project?
Well, the thing is about the academics over in Germany is that there's not a ton of assignments. So there were only a couple assignments throughout the whole year. And then it was mostly just like a discussion. So the 2 assignments that I did have are still with me. But the final paper that we had to write, I still think about it frequently. I wrote about Stravinsky and the 3 Russian ballets that he did. And it was really cool.
It's always really cool to have those classes that not just bridge your culture to the culture that you're learning about, but like Germany to Russia, Germany to whatever it is. So you did the host family housing. Can you tell us a little bit about what they were like, what that relationship was like, the process to find that host family through AIFS?
So I had heard from other students who had gone abroad that they really liked doing a homestay and that it was a super valuable experience. So I knew from the start that I wanted to do that. When I applied, I indicated that, and we were supposed to send a letter about ourselves to the people who were matching us, because AIFS goes to Germany through 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦, which is through the 𝗟𝗘𝗧𝗦. So they do the matching. So we sent them a letter going like, "Hi, this is me. I like to travel and knit and..."
Now, was that letter in German?
I chose to do it in German because I could, and I thought it might be fun, but you could do it in English. Sure. I think I put a paragraph in English about stuff that I wasn't too sure how to say. They asked you your preferences, they matched us, and I got a letter back from my host family welcoming me and telling me like the basic rules of the house. And when we got there, we all met up and they were super welcoming. I think that's just in every host family, that if you apply to be one, you're going to be good. So the makeup of the family was a mom, a dad, 4 kids. They were all older. 3 of them were out of the house when I got there, and then 1 was applying to college while I was there, so that was interesting. And we were in an apartment in the middle of the city. It was fantastic. They did a really good job matching us. My host mom was a yoga teacher, and my host dad is a dentist. I'm a vegetarian, so I was a little worried about like cooking and stuff, but my host mom's also a vegetarian. It was a really ideal match.
Yeah, 𝗟𝗘𝗧, your resident director, when she was explaining the housing for the program, specifically the homestay, she said the best way to describe it, it's almost like a matchmaking process. You're just trying to kind of pair like personalities, like interests, but also give students a little bit of a space where, you know, they are experiencing new things that they might not be so used to. So yeah, definitely things like consideration of your diet, things of that nature that they want to accommodate. And we're very, very lucky with all of our locations, but specifically Berlin, just host families that have had a longevity with us, really enjoy what they're doing. And by nature, they're just a very welcoming culture of people. So we're very lucky with them. Did you find with local and local culture, did you find people to be warm and friendly? Do you think people sensed that you were an expat because you did speak German? So did you find you were easily able to connect with locals?
I think it was fine for me. There's a big stereotype that Germans are kind of cold and unfriendly, and it takes a while to get to know them. But out of all of that, it just takes a while to get to know people. But people are warm and friendly and nice. I think even if I weren't speaking German to people, they would be nice to me regardless. I took a ballet class when I was over there, and like the people at the front desk welcomed me with open arms, even if you see someone at a bus stop.
I always tell students, you get out of the locals usually what you put into the universe, right? What you're putting out there yourself. So we've mentioned her name a few times, Miss 𝗟𝗘𝗧, our resident director, but can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with your RD staff? Because when you live in a homestay, you know, there's this misconception that you won't really interact with your resident director staff because you're not living in a resident directory, right? You're adjacent from that in a homestay. So what was your relationship like with 𝗟𝗘𝗧 and all of the faculty and staff and whatnot?
So when I was there, it was 𝗟𝗘𝗧 and Flora was her assistant. Immediately, I knew that she was awesome. 𝗟𝗧's just the best. I actually heard about her before I even got there, that she was so awesome. She was super communicative, and one of them, Flora or 𝗟𝗧, was at the cafeteria of the university every Monday to help us do anything. So I would always be able to see them. 𝗟𝗧 would organize events for us, and shoot us a text if something cool was happening. We were all in a WhatsApp group together. I loved traveling with her on the AIFS excursions. She was like our Auntie 𝗟𝗧𝗦 over there.
They're definitely not there to handhold, but they will go above and beyond for you with anything that you need in terms of recommendations. 𝗟𝗧𝗦, she just always has a list of places that she'll send the students. They're cool places where you'll experience like the culture, and she's not going to send you off to the places where, chains and things of that nature. And she also was I believe, a tour guide for many years before she was an RD. She just knows how to navigate personalities, people coming into new environments. You said you love traveling with her, excursions. Goes without saying, any of our study abroad programs, that's definitely a perk, right? That they set up these excursions for you for weekends, for leisure time, in addition to probably your own leisurely travels. What were those excursions like? Where did you go? Is there one that stands out to you, a favorite experience amongst them?
So the excursions were great. And since they're part of what you pay for, I went on all of them that I could. We went to Potsdam, which is just half an hour away by train. And that's where 𝗟𝗧𝗧 was a tour guide, so we got her special tour from that. But I think my favorite one was, it was earlier in the semester and it was still really warm, and we went to the northern part of Germany, to a town called 𝗟𝗧𝗧𝗦, and it's right on the beach and it's fantastic. And we all stayed in a hostel and had a barbecue dinner outside and swam and went and watched the sunrise and then had a little morning dip. And that was like when we became close friends with everyone else in the program. And we just had a really great time, and 𝗟𝗧𝗧 was teaching us the history of the town that we were going to, and it was a small museum attached to our hostel. It was just fantastic, and I still dream about going there.
Did you do any leisurely travels outside of the AIFS excursions?
So besides the AIFS specific ones, the FUBEST program took us to a variety of locations. It was required that we travel. So I went to Belgium and the Netherlands with them, and it was kind of experiential learning, like you said before. But on my own, that I organized myself, and I decided to do a solo fall break. So I traveled by train and bus to Hamburg, and then down to Heidelberg, down into the northern part of Italy. It's a place called 𝗟𝗧𝗧𝗦, and then up to a very small town near Nuremberg, and then back up to Berlin. So I just
kind of like a one big circle, or a J maybe. Yeah, there's something very empowering about solo travel, and like the sooner you learn that, the better. From here on out, you're not going to be afraid to do things on your own. Of course, I always tell students, keep a high level of vigilance. That's whether you're alone, whether you're with people, whether you're places you know, places you don't know. Always do your research. And of course, again, the RDs are really great as a resource for that. But don't wait for somebody to do those things with, for sure. Just get out there and do them, because it's one of the most empowering feelings I could describe. Aside from that, friendships that you did make throughout the program, whether they were people in your class, AIFS participants from the university, international students. Tell us a little bit about those friendships and how have they changed since you repatriated home?
It took me a little bit to find my people.
Niche.
But yeah, my niche. But that being said, it was like a week and a half. Everything when you're studying abroad feels like it's forever, or it's in the blink of an eye. Right. So the beginning felt like it was forever, and I was a little worried about finding friends, but I did, and they were so amazing. So it was a couple of AIFS people, my good friends Mel and Allie.
Shout out.
And Amir and Jasmine. That was like my core group, and they were all AIFS people because we go on all the excursions together, and traveling together is the best way to get to know people. From my German class, I made better friends from outside of the AIFS program. And then my classical music class was 5 people, so we got to be really close. My host sister, the youngest one, I'm still in contact with my whole host family, but she was like the closest in age and introduced me to her friends, which is really cool. So I got to hang out with people who were German, who were from Florida, who were from California, and it was really nice.
And you'll have all of these people and places to visit. You said something that struck a chord. You said, yeah, you definitely get to learn the most about people when you're traveling with them, like what they can handle, what are their thresholds, what frustrates them, who's patient, good and bad qualities. So you definitely find your people really fast. In terms of like packing, did you pack a lot of things that maybe you didn't need, things you got rid of when you were in your program, you came back and you were a little bit more of like a minimalist? Did you shop a ton when you were over there and had an extra suitcase when you returned? Like, what was that pre-packing and then packing to come home experience like?
I love packing. It's very strange. I'm passionate about it. I had studied abroad in the summer before, so I brought way too much stuff. So I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do. I brought a big suitcase and then a small suitcase and a bag. I just tried to bring things that were solid color and go from there. As a result of learning how to live with less, I didn't buy I bought 2 articles of clothing, but I brought too many shoes. And that's always my issue, is the shoes, and they take up a lot of space. So I wish I didn't bring so many. I think I packed pretty well for the weather. I did a lot of research beforehand about the temperatures and how much it would rain or if it would snow at all.
That's amazing that you only bought 2 articles of clothing that entire semester. That's how many months, roughly? 3? 4? 4. Okay. 4 months, 2 articles of clothing. I feel like that needs to be in like a World Guinness Records book or something because it's just unheard of, but in the most positive sense.
I was really trying to not spend a lot of money. Instead, I spent money on food, which is more important to me.
Again, that it's experiences over things, physical things you bring home. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the cuisine. Is it like, I mean, we know like there's like bratwurst and strudels and like all these common German foods that we associate with the country, but like what were your favorite dishes? What were some unique dishes that maybe you wouldn't think were German? I know you said you are a vegetarian.
When I was there before, I was 16. I was really sad because there wasn't a ton of food for me to eat. Coming back, it's a whole new world with all the vegetarian options. So if that's anyone's worry, everything is changing. My favorite food was falafel over there. So there's a lot of Turkish immigrants, and they brought their food with them, obviously, and it's some of the best I've ever had. So there's falafel and halloumi sandwiches, 𝗟𝗘𝗧, which is not for me because it's meat. They shave it off the spinny guy. The spit. That kind of food is like my favorite, and it's so ingrained in Germany that it's now German food. The Turkish people are part of German society.
They've adopted the culture. I love that. It's not just Germany and Berlin in specific because it's a bigger city, just a huge, huge melting pot. All different nationalities, all different walks of life. If you're looking for an immersive cultural experience beyond just that of your program of study, Berlin's a really good option.
There's all these food halls everywhere. It's like a food court, but much better. And you just walk around and get what you want, like 𝗟𝗧𝗦 or gelato or whatever, you name it.
We've been talking about this the whole time. You did already go to Berlin prior to your study abroad, so maybe you didn't feel culture shock in the way that most first-timers would, but did you have a moment where it sunk in again, where you're like, oh, now I'm in Germany, you know, I've left the US.
Yeah, like you said, it wasn't like so dramatic for me because I've done it before, but it was just the length of time. Once I realized that I had been there for 2.5, like at the 2.5 month mark, I think, I was like, wow, I've been living here. I live here.
It's your home. Yeah.
And it's in my Google Maps. That's the button I press is to go home, and it takes me to my apartment in Germany. I think it was the amount of time that did it for me because I had never lived so far away from my family and my home for so long. It was just a weird feeling, but I kind of liked it. I think I experienced more of a reverse culture shock coming back.
What was the reverse culture shock like?
I can't even like put it into words so much as feelings. I was kind of annoyed by America, I guess, having been so far away from it for so long and hearing what Germans have to think about us and kind of adopting some of that mentality. Coming back, I was just annoyed by the drinking age and our politics and how, I don't know, I was just annoyed by everything. But I had to take a step back and I was like, okay, appreciate where you are right now. I kind of went through the same process that you would when you go abroad and when you're going down. You feel really terrible, and then at some point it curves right back up.
Like when you're arriving to a new location, like remind yourself, like don't be the culture police, right? So like you're going to Berlin, say it's for the first time, and things are different and they're not in the practice that you're normally used to. Don't be the culture police. You almost have to like give yourself that mentality when you return back to your home country. Like just kind of get on board, accept what you can, be in control of your reactions and your feelings, but try to take a place for what it is. Probably my favorite question, we've kind of been unpacking this in the ways of growth in terms of professional, academic, personal. What are those those streams of growth that you maybe experienced, and how do you plan to use those, within your own personal endeavors, professional endeavors, academically, what have you?
Everyone says the study abroad, you grow and you change. It's true. I've always been kind of a very independent person, but I grew into that even more so when I was there abroad doing it. I have better follow through with things that I want to do and things that I tell other people that I will do, because when you're there, you're only there for a certain amount of time. So if you say you're going to do something, you only have X amount of weeks to go do it. And I've brought that back in what I do now. I've gotten a little more accepting of the unknown and being flexible. I learned how to deal with that when I was traveling. I had to deal with a new public transportation system, wandering around trying to find the bus and missing it or whatever. For academics, I had a completely new style of academics over there. Like I mentioned, it's just like 2 assignments and the rest is up to you. And I'm so not used to that. My college is very hands-on and we have a lot of assignments and you have a very close relationship with your professor. And that was different. And I think that really helped me with my academics because I can take more control and them now than I would have otherwise. Also, like I was meeting new people all the time. Yeah. And it was a great practice for networking. So I have professional connections. I got this job because of my experience in Berlin, but I also have like so many connections and I know how to meet people and talk to people now from this.
You definitely have this newfound ability to just kind of like bounce from your comfort zone really quickly and talk to people that you normally wouldn't. I know before I went, I was like kind of timid, didn't like to talk in front of people, didn't want to be front and center for presentations in class. I'd be that person feeling like they're going to throw up when I had to talk in front of people. And then I came back and completely different because you're constantly doing that on the regular to the point where it's innate. You don't even realize you're doing it. And then you rip off that Band-Aid and every Band-Aid thereafter you can. In terms of being an alumni ambassador, your job is to encourage students to study abroad, to help them feel prepared, supported in that process. So are there magic words or is there something that you keep in your back pocket that you share with them that really helps, expand on that experience that you had in order for them to feel comfortable to pursue that?
Well, my number one tip for anyone who's even slightly considering going abroad is to talk to someone who already has. That's why I love this job so much. Before I went, I sat down with someone who had done this program before me for 2 hours and I grilled them about every aspect. So like asking questions is your like number one best friend. The world's a lot smaller than you think, and not in a bad way. So technology like Zoom and Instagram and all that stuff makes it easier to adjust to being so far away. Like you feel physically far away. You're always going to be connected to what you know and love. And that's a kind of a nice, like reassuring thing to be able to FaceTime like your mom or something. So I think that's just like a good thing to keep in mind. The world's a little smaller than you think and it'll be okay. But at the same time, stepping out of your comfort zone is one of the best things that you can do. People surrounding you too. I've come back and I've helped other people who haven't even been abroad. They've learned things too. Do your research and talk to people. You'll be connected and just take a leap of faith and just go for it.
Cool. Excellent stuff, Sadie. Everything you said, I'm like so on board with the growth, the change, all of it. Right. And again, like just this time, you really start to look back on it and just appreciate like the essence of like a moment when you're in it for sure. We have a quick little speed round. I'm just going to give you a word. If you can think of the first word that comes to mind in association with your study abroad experience, spit out whatever comes. So 1, food.
Everything. I love.
No, I don't discriminate when it comes to food. So on board, totally. Everything works. How do you say everything in German?
Us.
Transportation.
Comprehensive.
Good one. Locals.
Nice. I bet everyone says nice.
Language.
Beautiful. Sure.
Yes. Favorite city?
Berlin. Duh.
It can be Berlin, right? And I mean, there have been students that they'll experience another city when they're traveling on their weekend travels or like excursions. And they're like, okay, if I could go back and do this, I would choose to live here or I'd spend more time here. But if Berlin's your favorite, then we're all about it.
Can I add one or change it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Bruges. It's
Bruges.
a small city in Belgium.
Perfect.
And it's the best chocolate that I've eaten in my entire existence. I cried in the street because it was so beautiful.
It will evoke emotion. Food will definitely do that for sure. Landmarks.
Everywhere.
How do you say everywhere in German?
Überall.
Überall. I don't speak any German, can you tell? Architecture?
Mixed.
Is there one building maybe that you, or museum, or maybe it's a historical landmark that stands out to you as being like unique, or something that maybe looked like it didn't belong in Berlin because it looked like it was maybe that of a different culture? Like, I don't know if there's something that like stands out to you, but
I think everyone thinks of like the Brandenburg Gate and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Right next to it, you have to go up. It's right next to the American Embassy, and look in this conference building. There is the most wacky piece of architecture that I've ever seen, and I would never have expected it from Berlin or Germany. And it's like this contemporary, like swarmy line kind of thing. It's just a conference center, and it's just really cool. It's Franco Gehry is the architect.
a nice little hidden gem that, again, we probably would not be able to find without our alumni ambassador team. Very good. And one word to describe your entire experience.
Fantastic.
Any closing remarks before we go today? Anything else you want to add that we didn't really get to talk about, or anything of that nature?
I don't know. Berlin is just a really special place, and studying abroad is a special thing to do, and I feel very lucky that I was a part of it. I would encourage anyone and everyone to go, regardless of your year or major, whatever, and consider Berlin.
Yeah, and if you're considering Berlin, guys, we'll get you in touch with Sadie. She's an awesome resource to talk to. How do you say see you soon in German? Let's go with that.
Bis bald.
Bis bald.
Bis bald.
Bis
Like
bald.
bald.
Bald. Okay, all right. Bis bald.
Bis bald. Yeah.
All right. Well, until then, bis bald. Thank you, Sadie.